During the classical period also, we see the secret society moving behind nearly all forms of generalized education. It was the work of the old secret societies to so enrich the cultural, moral, and spiritual life of the leader that he might not be inclined to pervert his authority or to use his powers to exploit or enslave his peoples. Thus, the secret society educated the leader, not merely in the arts and sciences, as we generally consider them, but in the moral values and in the ethical overtones essential to proper government or any executive or responsible position. After the rise of Christendom, and it passed into a more or less positive relationship with society, the non-Christian minorities who had once dominated also found it expedient to organize against the rising power of Christendom. Thus we have a number of fringe organizations preserving their non-Christian identities for centuries after the rise of the church. They accomplished this by the use of the greatest secrecy. The individual who is doing wrong, particularly the popular leader or the autocrat or the despot, fears desperately the possibility of the rise of private assembly within his areas. Back in the days of World War I, most of the central powers immediately outlawed secret assembly for fear that it would result in the betrayal of their own purposes. In World War II, both Germany and Italy, under Hitler and Mussolini, outlawed secret societies for fear that from them would rise the force that would later judge them and would make more rapid their overthrow. And in America today there are many secret societies, mostly secret because of the membership's conviction that they have a project which would otherwise remain undone, and to which they contribute by means of the slender framework based upon the older concept of assembly for particular purpose within a larger social theater. In these areas, all of the purposes which originally legitimatized secret assembly, these purposes still confront the people. And a study of news, a study of our available sources of information, point out that secret assembly now exists in probably 3/4 of the nations of the world on the level of a real and pressing social need, on the level of a desperate effort to preserve truth against error, on the level of a desperate desire to advance the common state of people from the tyranny, ignorance, superstition, and fear by which these people are now dominated. It was private assembly which liberated Latin America not more than 100 years ago. It was private assembly that resulted in the gradual rise of the rights of people throughout Europe 150, 200 years ago. It was private assembly that strongly advanced the cause of our own Revolutionary War. It was private assembly that created the Republic of China in 1912. It was private assembly that advanced the freedom of most of the Far Eastern nations that finally achieved constitutional government. This secret assembly must therefore continue, inasmuch as the need for it also continues. During most of the 19th century, secret societies that had brought peoples to various degrees of security had moved and created from themselves leaders, for most leadership was backed by some pressure. Had it not been so backed, it could not have moved forward against an entrenched tyranny. These leaders were individuals apparently, but had they not received help of some kind, usually secret help, they would not have been able to survive to achieve the reformations which they accomplished. In a free society of men, these societies wave their flags, have public assembly, and receive broad publicity. In a tyrannical situation, such societies must go underground, must hide themselves, and seek to gather numerical or political strength in order that they may ultimately overwhelm the tyranny that opposes them. There is one other point which I think we should also bear in mind as we analyze societies of this nature, namely the belief that was held and is held in many parts of the world that behind and beyond all of this confusion that we know, there is an archetypal social pattern. There is the common belief that above and beyond the ordinary governments, the ordinary leaderships, and the more traditional secret societies, there are in the world certain groups that have functioned and existed in complete secrecy over vast periods of time. That these secret societies have not ceased, but continue to exercise a powerful directive upon humanity. This, in turn, strikes a deep and responsive root in the psychological life of the individual. It is only another way by which he says there is a purpose. There is a plan. I think we may safely say that half of the people of the earth today believe that between God as a supreme principle and man as the projection of that principle into society, that between these there are intermediaries, that there are always in the world certain God-enlightened prophets, certain great teachers, wise ones, as mentioned in the scriptures of every people, including the Christian scriptures. The existence of this over kind of government is man's way of symbolically stating that he believes in law, that he believes in order, that all the divine principles operating in nature are substantially invisible in themselves and visible only in their consequences. Yet these invisible principles are continuously conspiring. Yet these invisible principles are continuously conspiring, and conspiring with evidence of rational directive toward the improvement of man and the protection of those values which man has come to regard as indispensable. It is only a step, therefore, to consider a kind of hierarchy, a kind of overgroup, bound together by true knowledge, bound together by a common possession of realities, that there are those as called God-illumined persons. And this illumination includes the conviction that there is a pattern, and that the laws, principles, and motions of society are governed from a root. And in contemplating this root, man has come to the inevitable conclusion that it is a godly formation, a godly grouping of beings. So many nations look to this over government with the greatest hope. that it will ultimately lead to their liberation. Such is the mind of China today. Such is the mind of India. For beneath and behind all other allegiances is the allegiance to the great gods that dwell beyond the snowy band of Himavat. These gods are not merely deities alone, walking the earth. They are the great gurus, the teachers of teachers, and from them spreads out the great religious educational system of Asia. And this educational system is grounded firmly in the belief in an invisible hierarchy of illumined beings. Because we have a belief that there is a divine authority behind all human authority, and that this authority operates in the world according to the will of the divine, through instruments selected for that purpose. Because of this, we are able to meet the future with serenity of spirit, whereas those not so believing live in continuously increasing tension and doubt. Thus, the ideas that there are positive and constructive forces continuously operating beneath the surface of society, such ideas help us to continue our own lives in a more constructive and benevolent manner, giving us the continuous assurance that we are laboring in the causes that are right, and that this right will ultimately succeed and will come to the full expression of itself.